himself, and so they never go any further than that, right?
Right.
So as a sales manager, looking at your sales team, finding a good mix for your sales team, what do you look for in a new rep that's coming onto your team that wants to join your team in Salt Lake City?
A unicorn.
Welcome back, everybody, to Stop Interviewing, Start Selling. I'm your host, Philip Meyer, and today we are moving up in the world, everyone, because I've had sales rep after sales rep on this podcast, even legendary sales reps who have been to President's Club multiple times, people from outside the industry, from outside my company, but it is time to interview a true sales leader. So none other than my sales manager currently, Mr. Chris Baker. Welcome to the show. How you doing?
I'm doing terrific. Thank you for asking. I'm a little disappointed though. I'm confused. I was supposed to be introduced to Eye of the Tiger. I didn't know if you were going to cue that up or if I had to cue that up or.
Well, see, here's the thing with that is that's a copyrighted song, so I can't play that on my podcast. You know what's funny about that too is I actually did I did a Batman trailer recap with my brother. And that got flagged because of the background I was using. It was copyrighted. So it was like, that being said, if I was to ever become monetized on YouTube, which maybe someday, who knows, that particular episode wouldn't be able to be monetized. So, but next time.
No, I'm doing awesome, man. It's Friday. It's payday.
Yeah.
We officially just wrapped up Q2. An awesome Q2. In part thanks to you, and shout out to our sales team, led by you and Kevin and Aaron. It's and Paul. It's pretty amazing what you guys were able to accomplish in Q2. Considering that nasty C word we've been dealing with for the past year.
Yeah.
We lost a few staples on our team. And you guys have you guys kept swinging and we had an awesome Q2 and Q3 we're heading into just as strong. So
yeah,
I'm doing terrific. I couldn't be any better.
Awesome. Well, I think I speak for everybody on the team when I say that I'm stoked about what Q3 has to bring as well. And for those of you that are listening that don't know what we're talking about, so we have a fiscal year and our Q2 just ended today. So starting Monday, which is when this episode will be airing, this will be the beginning of Q3. So, but just to get kind of a little bit more background on you, Chris, why sales? Because like I see the jersey in the background, like I know you played ball, and I'm just wondering why make the jump into a career that is full of rejection and just all this craziness.
Yeah, no, sales is good. I mean, it's you're right. There is some rejection with it, but I'm one of those people that are curious by nature, and I'm a pretty social person, so it's just kind of a natural fit. I enjoy talking to people. I enjoy understanding different facets of different companies and the why behind things. So for me, it's just kind of a natural fit. I get paid to talk to people.
Yeah.
So it's pretty enjoyable.
All right. I totally get that. My wife will tell you, and I'm sure she has, like I'm the same way. Like I'm that person that if I'm in the grocery line, somebody's behind me, they mention something that I know about, I'm going to turn around and go, "Hey, I'm Philip. I'll be your best friend if we keep talking about this." And we'll just talk about it for hours. We'll hold up everybody else in the grocery line. That's super embarrassing for my wife, but yeah.
Or you just make small talk with the cashier and ask them how their day's going. And or the person next to you, they happen to be wearing some sort of uniform, and you're like, hey,
Yeah.
so yeah,
Yeah.
no, it's good, man. I enjoy talking to people. I'm a curious person by nature, so I enjoy understanding different industries and all the facets that make the world go round, and I like to understand the why behind things. So, I get paid to bullshit with people, really.
Yeah, absolutely. So switching gears from jumping into sales, one of the topics I haven't covered on this podcast, which I was super interested to do with you, is the topic of sales management, because it's one thing to be a rep, and that is a grind. But coming from somebody like me that was a sales manager for 6 months, realized I bit off way more than I could chew, and it was just super, super difficult to keep everybody accountable and everything else. Why be in sales management? Why not be a rep and be a sole what's the word that they use, like a contributor?
Our connection's a little bad, so I did hear most of what you're saying. um I guess I enjoy leading people. It's it's something that I've always been. um I was mentored by some pretty great people pretty early in my life, and it's something that's really stayed with me since I was younger. In particular, there's one person that they really kind of took me under their wing, and so to speak, found a diamond in the rough, and mentored me, and really, you know taught me the right way on how to lead people and how to manage people. And I just remember the way that person made me feel. And so, really, for me, it's if one person felt the way that I felt, if I can make one person feel the way that this person made me feel, then I won in life. And so that's really the highest compliment that can be paid as a leader, is contributing to bettering somebody's life. And so, I've just always found it enjoyable. I enjoy, and really with management, you kind of get the best of all worlds. You do get to contribute, because there's accounts that I go to with you or with other team members, and that's really enjoyable. But you also get the benefits of leading the team and being the face of the team, and contributing in that way. So it's kind of the best of all worlds, really. So
Yeah. But with that too, it's not just about, because I mean that's touching on one particular part of sales management, which is super important, which is
I
mentoring.
can't hear you.
Can you hear me now? Test, test, test. Can you hear
I
me?
can barely hear you.
What if I get closer like this? Can you hear me? Testing, testing. 1, 2, 3. No? Oh shit.
Barely.
Okay, hold on. Let me adjust this real quick. Maybe it's my microphone. Hold on. Okay, test. Can you hear me now?
Perfect. Yep.
Okay, there we go. Yeah, it was just the mic. My mic's kind of faulty, so I apologize. So one of the things that you had touched on was you had a mentor, right? And you had somebody that
Yeah.
really kind of took you under the wing and really helped you out. So as far as mentorship goes, like how do you pay that forward now? Like I mean, obviously you want to change a person's life, but how do you motivate that person to do that?
You know, um, I think those people that have worked with me know that my leadership style is I'm more of a servant. I have more of a servant leadership style. So as far as paying it forward, I like to be there in the trenches with you guys and right beside you guys, strategizing, um, preparing, game planning, executing, you name it. So The other thing is during that process, you get to evaluate, your team, and you get to see the things that they're really strong at, the things that maybe some areas of opportunity. And when you see those areas of opportunity, just really coaching them on those areas of opportunity, and it can be just small tweaks, you know what I mean? Like, for instance, you've been doing this just as long as I have. And, one thing that you and I did was when we were talking about the contract, I was just kind of showing you like different things, on the contract as far as, how I've been successful in doing it. And so, even a master salesperson like you, those just small tweaks, and so as far as paying it forward, you get to kind of over time find these little areas of opportunity that and really kind of point those out and coach people and make them that much better every time you coach them, and then eventually they're that much better by the end of it. And I think the second best honor a leader or a manager can have is people that they have mentored being promoted. And so that's the other thing that is really kind of flattering and enjoyable is number one, if I can get one person to to look back and reflect on their life years down the road and say, man, I had this one leader, this one manager that really kind of shaped me into who I am today, then I won. And then the second part to that is throughout this process, the the more people that, corporate come to me and say, hey, we have these positions available. We know that your team's top notch. We want to take them. Then it's like, it's a it's a bittersweet because you're losing such a huge part of your team, but it's such a huge compliment. So, to see that to grow and blossom, that's, again, that's another, and any true leader should feel that way. You have to be very unselfish as a leader. And, that's the other big thing with being a leader is, I love it when I'm approached about my people. So.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. I'm glad you feel that way. That's like, it makes me think about when I used to teach martial arts and how, like, I never won a world championship. I never even medaled. I won state championships, national championships, but never the big one. And it wasn't until I think I was in my latter part of teaching professionally that I had a student who actually went and won a world championship and was super excited. And somebody asked me the question afterwards, one of my other students, they were like, well, are you jealous of them because they won and you didn't? They got the red letters on their back and the gold medal. And I was like, no, I feel great because, I mean, their victory is my victory. Like, why should I be jealous of that person? So
yeah, it's like you want it. It's like, it's almost like, in this strange sense, it's your child almost, you know what I mean? Like this child that you've raised, and it's kind of a weird way to put it, but it's very much like that,
Yeah. Now there's a big difference between obviously training somebody for a martial arts tournament or coaching somebody in a sport to now coaching and training somebody to sell, whether it's a small account, whether it's a big account. At least that's what I found. Do you feel like it's different?
Well, I mean, yes and no. I mean, typically in sports, they're more team oriented. Obviously your background's a little bit different because, martial arts is an individual contributor. So that may be a little bit different, but, I mean, at the end of the day, leading people, coaching people, empowering people, training people, regardless of whether you're doing it in a sport or a profession, it's all the same. I mean, you may go about it a little bit differently. I mean, obviously in a team sport, you have you have kind of a role there, but it's all the same. I mean, if you're if you're coaching people, if you're leading people, if you're training people, it's the same across the board to me anyways.
Yeah. So that kind of brings me to my next question for you, which is managing multiple people. So in Sacramento, which is where I was a sales manager, I had just inherited a team, which is obviously its own challenge. But at the time, I think I had like 3 reps at the time. And when I came on with you, and um, out of Salt Lake, we had what, 7 at the time?
Yeah.
Yeah. So 7 reps. I mean, that's, to me, to manage 3 people, to ensure they were doing their daily activities and going out, hitting doors, and were doing the things that would make them effective sellers. That was tough just to manage with 3, right? So how do you balance the attention with 6 or 7 people on your team?
Well, I mean, if you're having to, I mean, if your concern is making sure that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, you probably don't have the right people. So, the biggest thing is, you got to make sure you hire the right people, and it's tough. And believe me, I've definitely had my fair share of, because this job's tough. I mean, it's not for everybody. And during the interview process and during the, vetting process, there's really only so much you can find out about a person, and you really don't know until you're there in the trenches doing it. But, you got to make sure that you're, to the best of your abilities, that you're really doing all that you can to bring on the right people that, or A, fit for the job, and then B, that mesh well with the team, right? And so, if you're having to, micromanage activities, or, do surprise check-ins, you probably don't have the right people. I've been pretty fortunate to bring on the right people. And so, really my job is to support you guys, to support my team. It's not a big secret. I mean, you guys are there on the front lines. You guys are true professionals, and, it's my job to get you guys what you need to be successful. And so, as far as balancing personalities, or, the big thing is just to make sure your team, and you make sure what drives them. Motivation's kind of a weird thing. I'm not really a motivational type of guy, because that's pretty temporary. But if you truly connect with people and you figure out what truly drives them, and then you can help them achieve, whatever it is that's driving them, I mean, then you have something really special. And so, for me, it's really easy. I know what's important to my team. I know what drives them. I don't for 1 second wonder what you guys are doing during the day. If I did, there would be some pretty direct conversations.
Right.
But I'm blessed, man. I have a good group of people, and my job is to support you guys and get you guys what you need, and that's really it.
Yeah. So you mentioned motivation versus drive, and
Yeah.
like I totally agree with you that the motivation is a very temporary thing. Like I don't know if you know Jocko Willink, who's a Navy SEAL, but
Yep.
he said something just recently that kind of took the Facebook world by storm, and I've seen it repeated multiple times on LinkedIn and on other platforms, on Twitter and whatnot. He said, when motivation fails, you have to fall back on discipline. I didn't say it verbatim, like I'm sure he said something different than that. That's what the gist of it was.
Right.
So you talk about drive, right? What would
Mhm.
you say is the difference between motivation and drive?
Motivation, different things can motivate you throughout your life, and really day to day. Or until you maybe achieve that. Drive is something different. drive is something that is, I actually, there's a little quote that I saw recently, and I can't remember it verbatim, so I wouldn't want to badger it. I wouldn't want to completely trash it, but it was interesting. Essentially it's drive is that thing where it's a non-negotiable. Like you are going to, this is your why, right? This is your why. It isn't some temporary, motivation. Music's probably a good example. When I get up and I go to the gym, I listen to music that gets me pumped up and motivates me. As soon as the song changes, it could be a whole different mood, right? So all that stuff for me is just temporary, but my why, my drive is always consistent. It's always the same, And so to figure out somebody's why and their drive is that's where you have something truly special. That's where you really start to make a difference. Because when you can start connecting with people on that, they know that. And again, you have to be very unselfish, right? Because if I'm just coming at you and saying, hey, this is what I need, this is what I need, this is, it's all about me, you know what? It's probably not going to go very far. But I think that the reason that our team does so well is you guys know that at the end of the day, it's not about me, it's about all of us. All of our drive is aligned. We're all trying to accomplish the same thing. We're all paddling in the same direction. So anyways, that's my take on it. Your drive is it's that thing that drives you day in and day out. It's your whole why, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's something that I realized after, because when I first came back on with UniFirst after taking a hiatus, I was still kind of chasing down this other goal of becoming a police officer and all this other stuff. And once I realized I don't have the motivation to do this anymore, there's nothing left at that point, right? What's funny is I've been good at sales since I was 13. So I was like, well, why have I been pushing away this thing, this way of making money that has never once failed me? I've never felt like I couldn't win or had to prove myself. And once I got rid of everything else and I just focused on that became my drive. And I think that's one of the reasons that my numbers all of a sudden went through the roof.
Yeah, I guess a way to put it in perspective, we'll use you as an example. Right now you are motivated to get to P Club, right? Yep. But if you want to, that's a terrific goal. That's a terrific motivating factor, right? If you truly want to connect with Philip Meyer, it's not just about P Club. Why do you want to get to P Club?
Right.
It's the why. It's the why behind that. That's the special thing right there.
Yeah.
So.
Absolutely. And just real quick to answer that question too, is because that's how I know that I was the best, right? I could end this year at 100% to quota, and any other rep of the company would kill to be at that number. But then when I look at it, I go, if I just pushed a little harder, I'd be wearing that ring right now.
Yeah.
I'd be taking my wife out to Aruba. We'd have a great time, right? But
it's a validation to you as you, right? Yeah. Like for you, everybody, when they think about being successful, they some people may think of a mansion. Some people may think of a Lamborghini. Some people may think of $1 million in the bank. Everybody thinks of different things, right? But you yourself, I know you personally, and I don't see you thinking of any of that. I see you thinking of a big green ring on your finger.
Yep.
And it's like a validation is, hey, you know what? I am successful. Right? So.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny too, because I thought about over the course of time that I've been in sales, one of the reasons I love it so much is for that constant validation, because whether it's a quarter, whether it's a month, if there's any incentive that's put in front of me, any competition, like tomorrow, if like Monday, if you were to say, hey, there's a new competition, there's no money involved, but if you win this quarter, you get this.
Yeah.
I'm gonna win. Like, I'm gonna do whatever it takes to win whatever that goal is, whether it's a trophy with like a brass toilet. I want that trophy. You know?
FS Super Bowl.
Yeah, absolutely.
Shout out to FS Super Bowl. Yeah, you know, you and I are very similar in that sense. Like, you know, you've been pretty candid with me about, you know, maybe some feelings that you've had over the years, and I've never opened up about my own personal feelings. But I think that the one thing that, and this may surprise you, breaking news on your podcast here, I don't think I've ever shared this with anybody, but one thing that I can relate to is imposter syndrome, right? And it's real. And, you know, I've felt that way, you know, a lot during my life, right? And so, you know, I can relate to you a lot. And so it's, again, it's, you know, we can sit and talk about, you know, different things that may motivate you or motivate me. But at the end of the day, you know, especially, you know, when you're leading and working with somebody that, you know, has felt or has experienced imposter syndrome, you know, that validation of P Club is, I mean, that's priceless.
Right.
So
yeah. Now jumping back to that too, because the only thing that would be not a problem, but obviously the next step to that would be, well, if I went to P Club once, now I got to do it again, right? Because if I don't go, now I'm like, oh, I wasn't really that good. It was a fluke or whatever. In fact, when I had Will McDonald on the show, we talked about that too.
You know, I you know, knowing you, I'm not sure that yeah, I'm sure corporate would come in and place you as a sales manager somewhere before you ever tried to get a second one. So I don't think you have to worry about that.
Yeah, as
the nature of the beast.
Yeah, well, as honored as I would be, I mean, obviously we'll cross that bridge when we get to it, but yeah, I mean, my thoughts on being a sales manager is like it's an incredibly tough job, right? Because I mean, there's one other aspect too that we need to cover, which is hiring people. Like, I feel like that was a big thing, a big challenge to me, because I think I would see potential in people that I would meet and go through the questions, at the time there was like a field survey. We'd send them out to like 20 different doors and they come back and write a report or whatever, or do a presentation for us. But I think my problem was I would see the potential in that person, but they wouldn't see it in themselves. And so they'd never go any further than that. Right.
Right.
So as a sales manager, looking at your sales team, finding a good mix for your sales team, what do you look for in a new rep that's coming onto your team that wants to join your team in Salt Lake City?
A unicorn. You know, there's so many things that you look for. I think that the easier, the quicker answer to that would be, you know, what concerns do you have? And I think that when you shift your mind, instead of looking at the potential in everybody, to start asking questions that, you know, are non-negotiable to you, asking discovery questions of behaviors that are non-negotiables, you can typically weed people out pretty good. You know, so for me, you know, if we're going through the interview process and you know, here locally, you understand kind of what our interview process is like. We added a couple extra steps in there that maybe some other locations don't do. So I think that we have a pretty good system for that. But you know, when you're going through the interview process, you know, asking discovery questions of behaviors and traits and personality types that are just non-negotiable to you, regardless of what their resume says. Because let's face it, there's a lot of professional interviewers out there. So, you know, you got to shift yourself to ask those questions. So for me, entitlement, if I sense any sort of entitlement throughout the interview process, it's probably not going to be a good fit. So, there's things like that are just non-negotiable to me. If they just don't appear to be, coachable, that would make it tough too, because this industry is complex, and it's truly a team effort to be successful here. I don't care how talented you are, you have to have a good support system, and you have to be coachable and humble. So
yeah, absolutely. That's that's probably one of the things I've learned most about being at this location, is just how vital it is to work with your support team. And what I mean by that is the route service representative, the customer service representative, the plant manager, the general manager. I mean, we all have this circle of life kind of mentality that I think works well for us. Are there flaws? Sure, right? But that's where that
right.
team play has to come in. Like, I always use the analogy of football. I'm not sure why they keep using the Patriots. I mean, the Patriots are obviously or were a dynasty before the greatest of all time left their team. But I think about, like, if Tom Brady was to throw a pass to Julian Edelman and it kicks off his fingers and it rolls away, the first thing Edelman's going to do is go, he's going to hit his helmet. He's going to walk over and go, my bad, I'll get you on the next play, right? I think he's going to work even harder to make sure that he doesn't mess up anymore after that point. So I totally get where you're coming from there. But as far as hire, I can't talk at all today. It's the headphones. So hiring people kind of builds into the culture, right? Because you got to make sure that you have a fit. But starting, like, when you first came on to this company and you first became a sales manager, what kind of steps did you take in order to implement your culture into the team? Because I'm sure it's probably different than what it is now, right?
Oh, you're a funny guy, man. Well, it was really easy for me because the whole team quit my first day here. So
really,
yeah, it's kind of a crazy story. But yeah, I mean, long story short, I mean, yeah, pretty much. I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, it's no secret if and typically if a new sales manager is coming in, if they're hiring a new sales manager, there's probably something's not right. You know what I mean? And it's either underperforming or not staffed or whatever. But typically there's something off there. My first day there was there. Yeah, pretty much. I think we had 4 people. We were supposed to be, back then it was different because we were supposed to have +2. So I think I was supposed to have 8 people.
oh, wow.
And my first day there, there's 4 people, and we had this terrific introductory meeting and this rah and everything's all good, and we all break and go to lunch, and then we come back from lunch and I have resignation papers sitting on my desk. And
Holy
so
crap.
so people resigned, and so at that point it left me with a gentleman that was, I think he was in his 9th week of tenure, and then another gentleman that I think was in month 4 or 5, something like that. So they were both pretty new. Anytime an old sales manager leaves, it's always tough because there's a bond formed there with any potential sales rep, with any sales reps that are there. So there's just a really strong bond, and they didn't like the change, and so I had 2 resignation papers on my computer when I got back from lunch. So
Wow.
But so I mean, it was easy. I mean, it was tough. Well, it was easy. It was tough. I mean, it was easy to build the culture because now I'm starting from scratch. Building a team that I've hired, right? But it was tough because, I was in a pretty unique situation. I'm one of the few that was hired directly as a sales manager from outside the industry. And so I was still trying to learn not only the industry, but I was also learning the role. So it was, it was challenging to say the least. And I'll tell you what, there's no better way to learn than to be thrown in the fire. That's for sure. And I was definitely thrust into that fire.
Yeah, for sure. Like that's got to be tough too, because like again, my 10 years as a sales rep, I've seen, let's see, 1, 2, 5 salesmen. No, is it 5? No, 4. So I've seen 4 sales managers in probably the 5 years that I've been a rep. Now, to be fair, the reason it's that number is because I transferred from Sacramento to your branch, so you're
Mhm.
number 4, right? But
Yeah.
just in the Sacramento branch, my tenure there, like I saw 3 go through that, and like I mean, yeah, you do kind of create a bond with them. Like I still talk to the first sales manager I ever had,
Mhm.
probably like a monthly basis. I'll call them up and say hi and see how things are going. My second one was the President's Club rep, who I absolutely loved, from Los Angeles. We still talk as well. And then my last one was actually from one of our competitors. So that one was kind of different because I was like, well, he's coming from our competition. Is he going to try to change everything? So yeah, there's some natural hesitation that goes into that. Um, but yeah, I stuck it out. And I think one of the things I learned from that is that whoever steps into your role can teach you so much more than what you thought was there, especially if they've already had a proven track record, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So yeah, that's
Yeah.
that'd be
And to
tough.
be fair, that's probably what made it tough, is because they knew I was hired directly as a sales manager from outside the industry. And I think at least in one of their cases, that rep was on track to hit P Club. And I think that rep may or may not have felt a little overlooked for the role, maybe. I'm just kind of speculating, but so there that may have played into it as well. But yeah, for me it was I started with pretty much a clean slate, and so it
Wow.
made it real. I had to hire all new, and we grew together. So
Wow. So that kind of leads me into, see, it's perfect that you're on here because we're flowing so well. I wrote down all my notes. We're
it's
just
just like it's
going
just
down
like
the
a
list.
scripted CNA.
That's right. Exactly. um, so that leads me to our next topic, which is training. Right now, with Universe Corporation, we have a significant and a pretty effective sales training course. It's about 13 weeks long. It's very, very intensive. But you also have people that absolutely know what they're talking about, have been there for many, many years. They're teaching brand new reps that are coming on board. As a sales manager, though, there is a little bit of requirement to also train your staff, right? So let's say that I was a new rep. I mean, if I'm coming on, obviously the training is different from what it was when I first started. But if I'm coming on now, I'm going through the certification process each and every week. What 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 role would you play in that sales training?
Yeah, well, you play every role. So um, as a sales manager, it's wrong to lean. So we do have an award-winning training program, hands down, bar none, the best training program out there, nationally recognized, multiple awards. Um, so that's important to have. But if you're going to lean on that entirely and just kind of here's my person, train them, and then let me know when you're done, and I'll pick up at week 13 and we'll go sell something. Yeah, you're doing it all wrong. You got to be right there in the trenches with them, because I mean, here's the deal, and you know this as well as I do. We've been in the industry pretty close to the same time. I learn something new every week, right? And and it's also good to go back through these new hire training sessions, because also when you're in this role, as long as almost 5 years now, there's some stuff that you don't use all the time that maybe you slips your mind, or maybe you forget, or maybe you just don't use it all the time, so you're just not super sharp, right?
Yeah.
And so it's always good to go back through that training with your new hire and revisit that stuff and relearn it. As a sales manager, you want to be right there with them in the trenches. Also, you know, there's a significant amount of role playing that needs to be done that just can't be done on these these corporate training sessions. I mean, you're having, you know, I don't know how many reps are on those train, probably, you know, 20 to 30 reps at any given time. And nowadays, with things being the way that they are and everything kind of virtual, it's much different than it used to be on the old VidCon system. So it's not as interactive as maybe it once was. And so you definitely want to make sure that you're also role playing at the end of each training session. You're kind of going over what they went over in that training session, and just talking to them about their takeaways, and just kind of, you know, revisiting their notes with them, and just making sure that you guys are aligned, right? And so I mean, that's really it. You got to be right there with them.
Yeah, absolutely. That's something that that's probably one of the parts of the job, being a sales manager, that I really loved, was the training aspect. And I mean, like, you know, this, any new rep that comes onto our team, I'm more than happy to reach out as a tenured rep and kind of take them under my wing and say, this is how I do stuff. It doesn't mean it'll work that way, the same way in your case, but you can try it out, right? Because I've had people on my team when I first came on, and even now, and half the reason I do this podcast is so I get the access to people within the company, people outside the company that are just phenomenal salespeople, and I'm able to talk to them for an hour and kind of pick their brain, and also share that knowledge with the rest of the world too, because I think everybody can benefit from hearing that. So,
yeah.
But yeah, like I've always appreciated a sales manager that takes the time. For example, shout out to Brandon Price, who was my second sales manager with UniFirst, the P Club Achiever. I remember one time, I think I told you this story before, but I don't think I've ever shared it publicly on the podcast. But I remember one time showing up to an appointment. I thought I knew everything, right?
Imagine that, a sales rep that thinks they know everything.
I know.
I don't think I've ever heard of that before.
I know, right? So like, I show up to this appointment. It's obviously an A account. It's a big account. Brandon meets me there. We're about 30 minutes early. We're in the parking lot, and he goes, "Hey, why don't you show me your presentation real quick?" I was like, "Okay." So I literally took out a presentation folder, and inside it had 3 slicks. And that was it. That was my presentation. I thought, pretty good, right? And he goes, "Are you kidding me right now?" I was like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, it's like, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being you think you're going to win this deal, 1 being there's not a chance in hell. What do you think? I was like, "Oh, I'm probably like an 8. And he goes, "I think you're sadly mistaken." He goes, "But I'm going to let you do your thing. I'm going to watch you, and then we're going to train." I was like, "Train? I don't want to train with you." So we go in, sure enough, don't win the account. Totally crap presentation. He goes, "Okay, meet me back at the office." Get back to the office like 11 o'clock. We didn't leave until 7:30, 8 o'clock at night. And he showed me from start to finish how a large account presentation should be done. And to this day, I thank him every single day, every single time I talk to him, because without that kind of training implemented in my life, I wouldn't be able to close a Big 10 account or a big account and be as prepared as I normally am. So that being said, shout out to Brandon. If you're listening to this, Brandon, you're the man. Thanks for that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, same with you. Shout out to you, because that's kind of what I was talking about earlier, is you have to be coachable. I don't care how talented you are. I don't care what achievements you have. You have to be coachable. You know, I'm pretty good at my job. I'm pretty good at what I do. If you put me in front of a potential customer, I'm pretty good at closing accounts, but by no means I'm not perfect. And there's things that I get schooled on all the time. You know, there's stuff that I miss. And so you have to accept coaching. You have to. So I would say also, you know, shout out to you, because sometimes that's a tough pill to swallow. And I think a lot of the times, especially as a as a as a proud sales rep that thinks that you just have it dialed in, sometimes it's almost like by somebody giving you coaching, sometimes it's almost as if you feel like they're telling you that you're inadequate for your job. You know what I mean? And that's not it at all. And I can't stress that enough. Being coached or asking for help or needing help, that doesn't mean that you're weak. That doesn't mean that you're inadequate. That doesn't mean that you're incompetent. It means that you're human.
Yeah.
And so, that's really important. P Club rep or not, there's a level of coaching that we could all use. There's stuff that you're much better at than me. There's things that you can teach me. There's things that Aaron's better at than I'm at. There's things that Kevin's better at than I'm at. You know what I mean? And that's just the way that it is. And so you have to be coachable if you want to be successful. It's truly a team effort. You're not gonna win it with a selfish mentality. So shout out to you for taking the coaching.
Oh,
and
thank you.
Shout out to Brandon for making my life that much easier.
Yeah. I'll make sure that he knows. I'm sure he'll probably watch this podcast on Monday. But yeah.
No, yeah, dude. That's when you have somebody that comes on your team, whether it be a new hire from a competitor or somebody in your case that moved from a location, it's really terrific when you have somebody that mentored you, that truly took the time and coached you well, because if not, it makes a headache. There's a lot of bad habits that we have to break. So
yeah,
shout out to him for doing it right.
Definitely. But you also touched on something I think is important to mention too, and that is that I think with salespeople, or at least all the salespeople that I've seen, not stay with the company, but actually end up leaving, there's always this gigantic sense of pride, and it's never like a humbling thing. Like I've heard excuses of like, well, it's crazy that we have to do all this paperwork after we sell an account, or what do you mean I have to go out in the snow or out when it's raining and go and hit doors? I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna stay home, drink my hot chocolate. I'm gonna wake up at 9 o'clock. I'm gonna come home at 4 o'clock. It's just stupid, because if you humble yourself, you get up early, you push yourself, you have that drive to go out there, and you don't think that you're going to be the best, or you walk into a business and you think every single one of my my competition is going to be after this account. I have to be on it from start to finish. I have to be overly prepared, overly ready to take this business. Like I think that's been my key to closing these businesses down, is knowing that my competition's out there, even though they may not be as experienced as me, or they may not have as much motivation or as much drive. I don't know that, but that's how I look at it. So,
well, yeah. There's a few things that you do that separates you from your competition. In my opinion, the most important, well, I guess first and foremost, it's exactly like you said, work when your competitors aren't, whether that be at 6 a.m. or 7 a.m., or whether that be during the holiday break. We know how this industry is when you come up on the whole, Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's and, 4th of July and things like that. A lot of our competition isn't out there working. They're on vacation or taking time or whatever, and so you work when your competition's not, if you want to get the edge. But the other thing that you do really well that, in my opinion, is the most critical thing in any sales role is you do a tremendous job of preparation, as far as researching accounts, making sure that you're talking to the right person, making sure that you're there at the right time, because that's the other thing. In this industry that we're in, this is a contract industry. And I don't care how talented or how charismatic or how charming you are, if this company isn't in a legal position to make a move, you're probably not going to get the business. And so you got to make sure that you're not only the best person, but you're also there at the best time, right? And so
Yeah.
you do a really good job of getting that crucial information and then making sure that you're talking to the right people, because that's another thing that I see a lot. And people get stuck in the wrong places. They get stuck with people that can't tell them yes. And so
Yeah.
preparation is key in what we do, and making sure that you're really, really spending time researching these. And when you do get the appointment, know who you're talking to, know what the company does. Don't go in there and try to wing it.
Yeah.
So I will say that about you, is that's really what separates you, is you do a terrific job in your research and preparation. And so you're always super sharp. So
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. That's that's probably a very costly lesson that I've learned over the course of my tenure. Because I can't tell you how many accounts I've sat down with, and I just sat down with the wrong person. Yeah, we're going to do business with you. Yeah. Oh, I can't sign it right now because of XYZ, blah, 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 blah. They give you excuses. And then you come back and you realize that they signed up with Aramark, or they signed up with Cintas. And it's like, wait a minute, did you sign that? And they go, well, no, they met with Joe. That's the owner. I'm like, well, then why the hell am I meeting with you? What's like, you didn't think
because
to
you're
tell
my
me that?
friend, I like hanging out with you. We
Right.
bullshit for like a half hour at a time.
Yeah, see, there you go. I think that's the biggest key that I think I learned is it is easy to set an appointment with the office manager. It is, and by the way, no disrespect to office managers or service managers out there. We have them too. We understand what their value is, but it's super easy to set the appointment with an office manager or service manager because they don't get that interaction, and it makes them feel really important. That's just my opinion. That's kind of what I've seen. But the owners, the CEOs, the materials management director for hospitals, I mean, you have to go through a maze. You have to jump through hoops. You have to call them pretending you're a CEO to not that I'm advocating for that at all, but like,
all right, edit that part. Edit that part out.
but the point is, you gotta
I
do
do
so
not
much.
tell my people to lie and pretend that they're CEOs.
No, that's not what I
Get that
meant.
on record.
That's
No.
not what I meant. What I meant
No,
is,
you're right though. It's a
talk like
swag. It's a swag
Yes.
about you have to have the confidence. You have to act as if you are it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's I won't even throw out any titles because quite frankly it doesn't matter. But at the end of the day, it's if you get stuck, in any business, if you get stuck in the wrong spot, it's a tough time to get unstuck.
Right.
And it takes more work to get unstuck than it takes to just do it the right way and start with the right person, right?
Yeah.
Because then you run the risk of getting stuck and jeopardizing relationships because it isn't moving, and now you're forced to go over their head, and and it's just it's so it's just it's a tricky spot to be in. So that's what I see, and you do a really good job of not putting yourself in those spots. So
thank you.
Yeah.
And again, like I learned that from just not winning accounts and realizing I can't keep talking to. And it's funny because like that revelation actually came when I was watching Avengers: Age of Ultron, when Andy Serkis plays one of the characters in there, and he's talking to the Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver, and he's like, based on what you just said, you're not the man in charge, and I only deal with the man in charge. And I thought that was such a great line. I was like, oh, I wish I could say that. And I started kind of like making a hybrid.
Yeah.
What to say, but
yeah,
yeah,
it's we've all done it. If any professional tells you that they haven't done it, they're probably not being truthful. We've all done it.
yeah.
It's easy. So
It is easy, absolutely. So last topic is key. And this is probably the hardest part of any sales manager's job, besides the hiring. I mean, all of it's hard, all of it's difficult, but keeping people accountable. Like, what are your thoughts on that? How do you do that with your team?
Well, um, you know, no, I think
just grab
that
your hammer
there's
and just hit him on the head.
there's a short answer and a long answer. The short answer is we have a process, right? You're supposed to have a PNR every Monday.
Right.
Have your PNR. There's accountability written all over that, right? So, or one-on-one, whatever you want to call them. But, you got to regularly check in with your people. You got to make sure, and for a variety of reasons, not only is it to hold them accountable, but it's also to support them. That is our sacred time to talk about accounts, right?
Yep.
And not just go through the motions, but there's accounts that we need to talk about. We need to strategize. There's things that we need to figure out. And so you got to make sure that you're disciplined enough to make sure you're not shorting your people on the time that they deserve. And the other thing is it's you just got to make sure that you're there for your people. Constant, if you're regularly in communication with your people, there's a level of accountability that just naturally occurs, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, really just follow the process. Accountability will take care of itself. We have a policy for a reason. We have a process for a reason. And if you're staying true to the process, then the accountability will just naturally happen. So
yeah. And I feel like in sales, because I was just talking to I forget who I was talking to about this. We were talking about how sales really shows. Oh, it was Aaron I was talking to. It really shows you a very transparent view based on the results, right? Because if the results aren't there, well, then why aren't the results there? And that
right.
PNR, I think you can go back and track everything and say, well, how many appointments are you having? Are you setting yourself up for success? Like, are you reaching out to this kind of account? Are you doing this? Are you doing that? Whereas if all that stuff is in play, like the results are there, then everything's kind of firing on all cylinders.
Right. Well, and not only that, but I'll use the example. So our Thursday morning meetings, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that every Thursday morning we're going to hop on a Teams with the whole team, and we're going to have a Thursday morning meeting or training or whatever we have in store for that week, right?
Yeah.
And we also have one on Monday too. And there's speaking openly in that forum forces you to be accountable, because you got on that same forum with the same group of people a few days prior and said, hey, this is my commitment for the week. This is what I'm going to do. This is the account that I'm talking about. This is what I have going on. And then to hop back on that on Thursday and say, that didn't pan out.
Mm-hmm.
There's just the way that we do things. There's an accountability that naturally occurs, and it isn't like strategically put together to hold everybody accountable. But I think that the forums, the way that our weeks lined up, and just kind of the way that things naturally occur in a constant communication, accountability just naturally occurs. So
yeah, I would agree with that. Well, Chris, I want to say thank you again for jumping on my podcast. I know it's been a long time coming. I think I even told you when I first started this, I was like, I'm going to have you on, don't worry. And then I never did. So I'm super happy to be able to have you on the podcast. With that being said, if you guys have enjoyed this content, please hit that like and subscribe button. And also, if you are in the Salt Lake area and you think you can make it on our team, reach out to us on LinkedIn. You can find Chris. Chris, what's your name on LinkedIn? Is it D Chris Baker?
Yeah, D Chris Baker. I'm one of those weird people that go by my middle name. So.
All right, so D Chris Baker. Jump onto mine as well. You'll find my name there. Also, quick shout out to LinkedIn. They're not a sponsor of the podcast, although once again, LinkedIn, if you want to send me a check, I'm your guy. But without LinkedIn, I would not have the contacts that I have now with some of these amazing representatives from different companies and the ability to be visible, not just within my own company, but also within the community of salespeople and sales managers and sales leaders across the world. So, Chris, anything to leave before we jump off?
No, it's been a pleasure, man. I appreciate you taking the time to have me on, and I'll echo what you just ended on. If by chance you are watching this and you think that it would be a good fit and you want to try your hand at it, I do have a couple open spots, which is pretty rare. As I mentioned, to start the whole podcast, that we had a few departures earlier this year. So I do have a few spots to fill, and I'd love to have anybody that feels that they would come in and make an impact. And I think you kind of see me and Phil's personality, and you think that you would mesh well with the team. Go ahead and reach out to me. I'd love to talk.
Awesome. Well, once again, thanks, Chris, and thanks everybody for listening to Stop Interviewing, Start Selling, and we will see you guys next time.